afternoon. It's been a pretty full couple of days, and we appreciate you're still here this afternoon, so thanks for coming. I am obviously very good friends with Pankaj. We helped him start his company and got to know each other over the last 5-6 years now, more, 7-8 years. And I always think it's very interesting to start by learning a little bit more about the person who started the company rather than the company. So I'm going to actually start the conversation by asking Pankaj to give us a little background on his story and really focus on when he's seen transitions in technology, which is what this company is about.
Absolutely. So thank you, Sumant. I have been in the industry for a long time. And when I always think about it, I say compared to either Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, I'm a baby. So, to put it in perspective. But I started my career working on IBM mainframes out of college. So back then, that was pretty exciting career because we are talking about in 70s, and the IBM mainframes were cool.
Getting access to a computer was
exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
So it was a very cool thing to do, and then I worked through the evolution of the computer industry in Boston, working at companies like Digital Equipment Corporation and Prime and Apollo, companies like that. And then I started a company, and I sold it after 5 years.
In LA?
In LA, actually. And I remember speaking to the two investors in Santa Monica. They were, obviously, Marsh wasn't there at that time. And they were questioning, after I gave the pitch, they asked me who was my CEO. And I said, you're talking to one, and they were shocked.
Yeah.
So anyway, the life has changed a lot. And after that, I got into networking. I started to run a good piece of engineering at a company called Stratacom. And we were a pioneer in ATM switches and frame relay switches.
Which if I test the audience, no one will know what.
Yeah, no one will know, exactly. And that got acquired by Cisco back in '96 for $5 billion. So it was a good hit for us. And Cisco actually was placing a bet between whether the IP will win or ATM will win. Yeah. And thank God, IP won and ATM didn't win. But we got our money, so which was a good thing. But so that actually got me into networking pretty deep. And eventually—
So what year was this, Pankaj?
'96.
So this is the biggest transition we've seen in this industry, was coming to the IP networks, which is what enabled internet.
Yeah, and at that time it was fun to be in that company because internet was new. Yeah. It was exciting. It was changing the lives of people as well as the enterprises, right? And it was fun. I mean, it was fun to be, especially in mid to late '90s, where, what I'm telling you is it's reality. I mean, our EAs were not able to keep up back in those days with the fax paper replacement of getting the POs by fax machine, and they couldn't change the paper fast enough. I mean, it's
a good problem to have.
It was a great problem to have. And then we went through the internet bubble burst in 2002 that taught us a lot.
I was just reading an article today about how someone was comparing NVIDIA to Cisco.
Yeah.
At one point, Cisco was the world's most valuable company.
Exactly.
In 2000,
and things change, and so then John Chambers and I, we both, and we were a tech team at Cisco for years. We retired in end of '16. But to me, the business, my job wasn't done. And so, which is what brings me to Nile. And so I kept on thinking about what is that I wanted to do different. And I know that when I was there at Cisco, for that matter, anybody who is there at a big company, you cannot disrupt your current business and the business model. And honestly, only one company which has done successfully, which is Adobe.
Yeah.
When they did that—
But 4 or 5 years of real misery.
It took a lot of pain for them, and they were warned. by the brilliant people on Wall Street that you do that and we'll trash you. And they did. And, but they didn't care. They said, hey, we know our journey, which is very gutsy. And typically the big companies don't have that. So that's how we got to start eventually Nile. And here we are.
So obviously we used to have a lot of conversations when Pankaj was thinking about Nile, but maybe Pankaj, tell the audience a little bit about what was it that you wanted to do then? And then we'll transition into what did you actually do?
Yeah. So what I saw, by the way, in the big company was, and by the way, not just in Cisco, but like, in general for the industry, industry is mired with incredible complexity. And I would say to the point where it became a giant industrial machine, where the way to generate the revenue and show the growth was to deliver feature after feature, quarter after quarter, whether the customers needed those features or not. But that became the trend. And so I saw that and I said, this is not going to scale. This is not going to work. This is not what market needs. Market is asking for incredible simplicity. Market is asking for automation. Market is asking for not such a heavy dependence on resources. Market is asking for a reduction in total cost of ownership, a great experience, and incredible security. And so I said, the way this machinery is operating is not going to cut it. And so that's how I really got into doing the Nile. And by the way, as part of the market transitions, that is one thing that I learned early on that John always said that always focus on market transitions. Focus on anticipating and investing in market transitions. And he will say, don't lose sight of competition, but put them in the rearview mirror. Don't drive your destiny by the competition because you will get surprised very quickly.
Chasing it then. Yeah.
So we saw, early on, we saw transitions in 3 areas. One was on the market itself. The cloud had come of age in a major way. Second one was about IoT. It wasn't about completely a different universe. I mean, IT and IoT were going to come together at some point in time. So there was one major transition. Second one was about, and today it looks like we hear NVIDIA every day, but back then we thought about technology side, we thought about AI, ML, and the soft words.
Automation.
Automation. Yeah. And so there was, actually that formed the foundation of the company, right? And the last but not the least was anything consumed as a service. Because if you remember 7, 8 years ago, when you talk to enterprise, they will say, okay, this is great, but give me a on-prem, and we'll consume for the entire site, right? Today, people don't think twice to consume Okta or Zoom or anything as a service. So those 3 were the major transitions. And when we overlaid those transitions against a 40-year-old industry, which is incredibly complex, both from the CapEx point of view, but more importantly from the operations point of view. Because in that industry, for every dollar that gets spent on the capital equipment, $3 a year gets spent on the operations. So it's a huge
about $100 billion a year.
$100+ billion of TAM just for what we do. But once we add more things to it, probably would be between $250 to $300 billion TAM. I mean, it's a huge TAM.
So, I mean, this is just a story, but Pankaj was thinking about this idea. I told him, Pankaj, whenever you're ready, just, I'll give you the money for it. Just take the money from me. I didn't know what the idea was. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I land in Singapore. I still remember I'm at the luggage council picking up my bag. I got a call from Pankaj. He said, okay, I'm ready. I said, okay, what are you ready with? He said, I'm going to let you buy 25% of the company for $10 million. That's a first for me, because normally I'm the one giving the offer, not the other one. So I said, okay. And that's how we started. So how long did it take you to get the product to a place where you think you were ready to deploy from that time?
Yeah, so we started in October of 2018. We had our first, by the way, we had to build, in order to do what we do, we had to build the entire stack custom, all the way from hardware to firmware to software to the application layer. And just like what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone and any other product that he did, because that's the only way you can have an incredible control over every single knob to automate. And we got a first piece of hardware in summer of 2019. So, and we were writing code, and we were bringing it up, and we were running, because one thing I learned back in the old place was, and John was always pretty determinist about this, was he says, you eat your own dog food. And what he meant by that is that before you ship anything to any customers, make sure that you're using it and you're fine with that. So we started to use our own service both in San Jose and in Bangalore from late 19 to the time when we did the very first customer deployment in December of 2020. And that was actually quite an experience because, you know, I mean, being in the Bay Area, I didn't want to try anywhere in the Bay Area. Because, you know, no offense, but like, you know, we in the Bay Area, I mean, you can't keep a secret. You buy somebody a nice glass of cab at Rosewood and he'll spill the guts, right? So I'm like, hey, we are going to go somewhere else.
You didn't want Cisco to know it?
No, nobody to know. So we found a customer pretty far. We found him in Nova Scotia, of all the places. We're like, in middle of winter, middle of pandemic, nobody can travel anywhere. Who's gonna go to Nova Scotia? Somebody has to be a diehard lobster fan to go there, right? So we found this customer, and we were trying to see as to how our story about simplicity will really. So the customer never saw the product. They never experienced anything. They only slideware on Zoom. We did a site survey through a video call, and we figured how many pieces of equipment that they will require was like 43. We shipped all the gear from Taiwan directly to the customer. They had capped the cabling done, racks ready, and we were all on the video session because we were watching as to how does a customer, very first customer, bring it up. By the way, those of you who are not familiar with the networking industry, every piece of gear that is made comes with Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? Because it comes with manuals galore, and we make no manual. We follow this man's principle to say, when you buy iPhone, there is no manual. So we have no manual. We provide a very simple mobile app that any human being, a high school grad, who doesn't even know how to spell the word network, can install the network and bring it up, okay? And
you'll find those high school grads in California.
Exactly. And so there was an IT director and a technician. They got all the 43 pieces of gear out, and through the mobile app that we provide on iPhone and Android, they deployed the whole thing, and they brought up the small building, 3-story, entire building service up and running in 2 hours. And we had never seen anything like that. So we knew by that time that it took about two years and 3 months, but we realized that we have something that we can really take it to places now.
And so your first year of selling was last year. Talk a little bit about what you learned in this process, where you saw things work the way you thought they were, where things were more challenging. And then maybe give an audience a sense of the amount of business you closed in your first year. I know.
Absolutely.
So it's a leading question.
So it's, you know, you learn a lot from customers, right? And when you come out with something disruptive, it's not going to be accepted by the customers right away, especially when you talk to at the end of the day, you have to talk to IT. And they see the writing on the wall. They see that a lot of the jobs that they have are going to be eliminated, right? So I'm like, hey, why would I dig my own grave? Like, you know, so there was a pretty big resistance, and it continues actually to some degree. You know, people have a difficult time to accept a change, especially a major change like that.
Which is what people don't understand about selling technology into enterprises, it's not necessarily a technical challenge.
No.
It's always a behavior challenge.
Exactly. It's an incredible challenge. By the way, fortunately, we saw that with AWS and what AWS went through. And if I can share that, so AWS, by the way, they came out first in 2006. And they came out to, not to sell it commercially, they came out to use that for their own e-commerce business. Then they realized that, oh, we can take this commercially. When they came out, I remember being at Cisco, some of my engineers started to use on the credit card, and my CIO, she will say, hey, Pankaj, you need to tell your engineers to stop doing that. And I'm like, begging, I'm sorry. I said, engineers are free birds. They're not going to stop. I said, you need to make sure that you have the right policies and procedures in place so none of the corporate data leaks out of the building. But I said, you can't stop this, guys. Are you kidding me? And by the way, people think that people in Silicon Valley are geniuses. Well, yeah. It took Silicon Valley a long time to adopt AWS, a number of years.
More than 10 years.
Very first company which adopted was Netflix.
Yeah.
And when they adopted, the geniuses in Silicon Valley woke up and said, oh, there's something nice about cloud. I'm like, duh, and so now nobody talks about it. So I think it's the same sort of challenge.
Anyway, so one other anecdote around this, George Kurtz, who's the CEO of CrowdStrike, is on the board of Nile with us. And he was giving the story of CrowdStrike, which he said when he came out with this cloud-based endpoint protection, it took him more than 3 years to break into the enterprise market because no one believed you could deliver security from the cloud. It was just like, where's my box?
Exactly. I think we face the same challenge because people will, when we pitch a story, and sometimes they will forget that we can see their internal chat. And they will these are large companies, and they will say, I don't believe what these guys are saying. We have never seen this. I'm like, okay, bring us in. And we show it to you. So I think that we also learned that migrating and trying to insert the service into an existing environment creates its own challenges, which is always the case. And we have learned a lot, and we keep on learning. But we have, I would say, we had the first year of doing business, and I'm greedy, so I can always do more. But I'm pretty happy with where we landed.
$30 million?
Yeah, we did, in the first year of being in business, we did $30+ million of TCV, which in the first year for a startup, that's not bad, by any stretch of imagination. So
maybe, given we have a few more minutes, talk about your last round and really think more about the thoughts behind who we bought on as investors and how that's going to help you expand the business.
So we started to work on the last round probably about a year ago. Yeah. And because it takes time, and as you all know, the market was not ideal to raise rounds because people were still seeing the after effect of the late 21 and 22, what was going on. But we were fortunate that we had a lot of interest from a lot of parties, and at that stage of the company, we were able to raise $176 million in our Series C. And by the way, I could have raised another between 75 to 100, but we didn't want to dilute the company so bad. So we stopped at that. And I was also deliberate about who we wanted to take the money from. So I wanted to make sure that we take the money from the companies which will help us strategically. So I have a decent chunk of money from Middle East, and especially from Saudi Arabia. And we have, since then, actually I was there for a 37-hour stay, and I just came back yesterday. So I'm surprised that I'm awake. But,
So are we.
Yeah, exactly. And, but we just announced a new company in Saudi Arabia, which a joint venture company between two of us, with Saudi Telecom and us, and which we are hoping that we can really build a pretty big business. As you can imagine, they are building giant projects all the time. I mean, just to be exposed, we haven't won yet, but just to be exposed to a number of projects which have potential of like $200+ million in TCV is not a chump change. I mean, that's massive, right? So that is working very well for us. We also took money from Liberty Global because they can help us obviously in Europe as well as US as well as in Latin America for how we need to insert. And then we also took money from Geodesic, and Geodesic is focused on Japan. And before Saudi Arabia, I came back from Japan for a week, and oh my God, I mean, what an incredible, I covered 13 large corporations in 3.5 days, from NTT East to West, Docomo, Ricoh, Hitachi, 2 groups in Mitsubishi, NTT Data, Toyota, and more. And I think it's going to be, I can see it's going to hold a lot of potential.
The one thing I think we didn't touch on is, if you think about Salesforce and you think about their available market, what they do is they sell per seat, per salesperson in an organization. When Pankaj sells Nile, it's every employee in every organization. That's a potential customer. So you're really, the size of the market you're talking about is
exactly
large, right?
Exactly. So it's a huge, because everybody needs connectivity in an enterprise, regardless of how small or large it is. So that gives us a pretty large landscape to capture on. And one of the things that we are seeing, by the way, typically in the SaaS business, 1 to 3 year contracts is all they would say. Our norm is 3 to 5. Lately, majority of our contracts are 5-year contracts. As a matter of fact, this last quarter, we won 3, which are 10-year contracts. Which is, by the way, in SaaS universe, they would hug you and kiss you. I mean, if somebody gave you a 10-year contract, well, nobody will give you that.
He's asking for something.
So no, life is exciting.
Good, great. Let's talk about going ahead from here. This year looks good.
This year looks good. We are working on
Netflix moment. Talk a little bit about your Netflix moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, we believe that we are hoping that we can create maybe 300 to 400% growth this year, and we can continue that trajectory for quite some time to come. So we have our go-to-market strategy is a direct sales force for enterprise. We have 96 partners globally, which address a lot of our mid-market. And then we just kicked off, after Neeraj came on board, even though I was working on it before he came on board, but a major MSP strategy. So we are working right now with the big names, like, AT&T and Charter Communication and Altice and Vodafone and STC, obviously, and Orange.
And Frontier?
Huh?
Frontier?
Frontier, actually, we did 2 road shows in Dallas and Tampa, and we were supposed to do it here a couple of weeks ago, but you guys got flooded, so the venue wasn't available. So we are doing it tomorrow, by the way. And I mean, just to give you a little, high-level view, just from the 2 road shows, we got 10 leads with the real opportunities that we are bidding on right now, right? And as some of them are like, one of them in particular has an opportunity into like 35 to 40 countries. I mean, this is, for a company of our size at this stage, that's massive, and so that's what we are hoping that we can do. So we will deal with how to scale problem
Next.
in the coming years.
So I think we're running out of time. I just wanted to leave the audience with this idea of, Pankaj is a lot of fun to work with. He's taking on multiple different tangents of innovation, including how the business model has worked in an industry which is now about 40 years old, one would say.
Yeah, 40. With Cisco,
so
40.
So you're challenging not just technical, you're challenging the financial aspect of building a business. But if the end goal and the end result potential is so large, then I think it's definitely worth it. So we're very excited to be investors. We thank you for flying from Saudi Arabia to meet us here, and look forward to spending more time with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.